Today I'm sitting down with Steffond Jones. Mr. Jones is a senior software engineer at Apple. Mr. Jones grew up in Chicago but completed his college education at Stanford University here in California. Why did the computer show up at work late?
I don't know.
It had a hard drive.
Okay.
You grew up in Chicago. Is it very different from California?
Yeah, I mean Chicago, I'm saying it's in the Midwest, so
Mhm.
and it's a, an urban city. So unlike where we live, it's, kind of suburbia where it's spread out. The city, you can take a bus, public transportation to go anywhere. Although I guess one of the big differences I notice, like like San Francisco might have different, ethnic themed areas where it's like, Chinatown or Japantown. But in general, if you go down to a place like Palo Alto University, you'll have like an eclectic mix of restaurants from Burmese to Chinese, whatever. But in Chicago, literally everything is segregated by race. So it's, you have, your Polish part of town, Jewish part of town, and then most of the South Side is, mostly Black community.
Got it. When you were growing up, what kind of things did you do with your friends?
Let me think. So, I mean, I guess like the typical kid, although typical for an environment where we're kind of pretty independent. I mean, we'd go to the park like most kids,
Mhm.
play sports like most kids. One of my best friends was a neighbor. He's two houses down. His father was a general contractor, so we had access to tools and things. So we would do projects like build, go karts,
Oh,
and
nice.
or like a little, I think a tree house and things like that. So just like typical things that most kids do.
That's pretty cool. What sports did you play?
So I didn't initially. I'm trying to think. I really didn't get into sports early on. Trying to think. Well, I guess the one sport I started with was track because I remember the 1984 where the Olympics was in LA and they had a junior Olympics. So I ran like intermediate lengths like the 400 meter and 800-meter dash and things like that in the summer. And then from there, I went on and played. I didn't. My father liked baseball. I didn't particularly like it, so I didn't. Most of my friends in the neighborhood played it, but after my freshman year in high school, I kind of just focused on academics. And the first quarter, I kind of watched and observed everything, and then I decided to take up wrestling.
Mhm.
So that was kind of my primary sport.
Got it.
Hmm.
In the city, did you have to walk to school every day?
Yeah. So I think my my wife thinks it's odd, but like my parents, it was this urban environment where they actually, my father and mother, they worked two jobs, and so they didn't have time to like, take me to school every day. And so early on, my mother taught me how to take the public transportation. So I would walk a couple of blocks and get on the public bus to go like, maybe 3 miles or so to go to my school.
Got
So it was pretty independent early on.
cool. What was education like on the south side of Chicago?
So I'm trying to think. I lived down the street from a Catholic school, St. Sabina, like a couple of, I think it was 2 blocks down, but I actually didn't go to that school. My parents actually enrolled me in a Lutheran school, which, like I said, was like maybe 3 or 4 miles away. So the Lutheran, it's similar. I don't know if Martin Luther is a monk who, you know, posted the 95 Theses and actually, started like the Protestant movement of churches. And so, because initially everything was like the Catholic Church. So he kind of started the, Protestant movement. And so that's the school system. It's the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod is the school system I went through from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Got it.
So it's the typical parochial school environment.
Nice. How did you get to explore and get into tech as a kid?
So I'm trying to think. I think back to what was the first thing. So as a kid, I was kind of always interested, and I was very fortunate. Like my school, they had an Apple II, in the classroom. So that kind of drew me into, kind of what is this device here? That's, they use it initially for some educational math games and English and things like that. And then we had free time to kind of sit down and, tinker with it. And then as a kid, I've always thought, initially I thought, oh, I kind of, liked hands-on things. And so there were I would go to the library and get these magazines. So they still have them today, I guess, Popular Science and Popular Mechanics. And in the magazine, they would have ads from, I guess it's gone now, Radio Shack, where you could go and kind of buy little, electronic kits. So you could buy things like, what is it, like a crystal radio set and things like that I would make. And then there was another company that would advertise in the magazine. I remember it was called Heathkit. And so they would have the little electronic projects that you could make, and so that kind of is what drew me in.
Got it. You're a senior software engineer at Apple. What is that like?
I mean, it's kind of like the rest of, I'm trying to think about the way California, Silicon Valley is. It's like the hub of kind of innovation. So, and Apple's definitely one of the, on the forefront of that, where every day you go in and there's a, new challenge, and there's a, something new that you're always working on and striving to improve. It's a great environment where, like, over the years I've been there, I've seen, as you've seen the devices that people, enjoy, and just notice how things, how these devices change people's lives and make them more efficient. Like, even you think about the pandemic, I couldn't imagine if we had the pandemic, say, 15 or 20 years ago, where you didn't have ubiquitous internet, where you didn't have devices like iPads or, a computer like readily available. And so it feels great to, to work on these devices that, help and improve people's lives.
Why didn't you return to Chicago after you were finished with college?
So part of it is, like I said, like, since Silicon Valley, at least for me, well, I think about the Midwest. So Chicago itself is kind of like a part of the Rust Belt, where it's like the industrial part of the United States, where there's a bunch of the manufacturing. And in fact, my father, he actually worked he was a machinist. So it was where, we, at least at that time in the 70s and 80s, where we would, we manufactured a lot of the products, in that area from the Midwest, whether, from probably out to Minnesota, over to Philadelphia. That whole area was just manufacturing, hub. And so it was a different, versus Silicon Valley is more of a, like, the product is actually intellectual, a product. So it's like, software, the things we work on aren't like, I guess the magic that makes things work is the software. And so a lot of that industry is here, at least, at the time. And so there wasn't a lot of, opportunities there. And so I just, coming out here for college, decided, most of the opportunities are here. And so I decided to stay out here.
We're about to enter February, Black History Month. Who is your favorite Black American civil rights activist?
Yeah, it's kind of, I guess, activist. I'm trying to think. That one's a little tough. Yeah, I guess the one that comes to mind now, just, the forefront, is Harriet Tubman. I guess because she's been in the news lately, because they're going to put her on a $20 bill. Just to think that there is this woman who, was able to escape slavery, but she, instead of just, thinking of herself, she made several trips back to bring more people to freedom. And so just that story of her, and I think back to Chicago, like, there is a DuSable Museum, who's the founder of Chicago. He's actually, I think he's Haitian. One of the early found settlers in Chicago. I guess they trade, he was a trader and everything else. And in his museum, I remember there used to be this picture of these hands, where you showed like a photograph of someone reaching down and grabbing someone else up. And so that's what I think about when I think about Harriet Tubman, where she always, thought about, what more can I do to help my community? She wasn't discouraged despite, all, the tragedy in her life, that she continued to, go back and bring more people to freedom.
Got it. Who do you think had a better method to get equal rights for African Americans, Malcolm X or Martin Luther King Jr.?
So, I mean, I don't think it's an either or because I guess toward the end of it, if you look at the scope of both their lives, I mean, early on, Martin Luther King was involved in, like this. He thought about the only way we can get over this is to have a community where we convince others that the historical past of the United States needs to improve and we need to be more accepting and inclusive. And so his strategy, I guess, was to bring more people into the camp versus Malcolm early on was more of we can do this independently without the help of anyone else. And I think he actually involved, if I guess maybe later on in life you'll read his autobiography, and early on he was more like this Black nationalist where he was we just need to focus on our community and take care of ourselves. But in the scope of the United States, there's only pockets where you could potentially do that and thrive. And I think over time, there was a period of time where he made this trip to Mecca, and he realized, because he grew up in this, the Nation of Islam, which is kind of this, separate sect of Islam, where it was just exclusive based on racial identity. But when he went to his pilgrimage, he realized that, at least as far as Islam is concerned, it was like an all-inclusive religion. So he went on, and what they do on his pilgrimage is they go out and everyone shreds all, when they go out and do this, they walk and they walk around this old shrine or something. And everyone actually goes in with just kind of like a cloth. So everyone looks the same, whether, they're people from Egypt, Africa, whether you're from Norway or whatever, they were all like, and he noticed all this, this environment of everyone's the same, when it came down to it. And I think after he had that pilgrimage, I guess he broadened kind of his mission to think that if, there are people that want to come on board and help us. So I think toward the end of his life, Martin Luther King and, Malcolm X were at the same point where they thought we need to work, within, the communities that we're at and not, so I think, yeah, they're equally needed. They were coming at it from both ends, from different ends, but eventually they came together. And unfortunately, their lives were ended early. But I think ultimately they came to the same place.
How did I do in the interview?
Oh, good. Yeah, there was touched upon, my early history and just, the things, I'm just, yeah, because it helped me think back to growing up as a kid. Because, at my age, you don't think about those things all the time. So it was nice to kind of think back and touch upon the early days and the things that, brought me here. Because I hadn't really thought about, my hometown, because I've been out here for so long and thinking about how different, things were back in Chicago versus the environment here. But yeah, it's kind of nice to be where we are. And despite, this last year, 2020 being ridiculous, as far as, all the events that have transpired, it's nice to come into 2021 and I'm hoping things will get better, and hopefully by the spring and summer, everyone there'll be some normalcy in life. So yeah, and we hope we can all like get together and, get back to, you and Jocelyn and everyone else and mingle together and, continue on. And this will be like a bump in the road in your lives.
Thank you so much for letting me do an interview on you, Mr. Jones. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
You too.